I apologize to Lara, please. I left you and made a terrible mistake. Nolan. It is, in fact, Nolan. I left you and made a terrible mistake. I've discovered that I am sterile. It's all my fault that I am unable to become a parent. It was wrong of me to leave you. I want you back because I miss you so much. What are you talking about, Nolan? I never stopped loving you, even though I know I damaged you. Give me an opportunity to do things right, please. I'm at a loss for words, Nolan. My life has gone on for the better. I will never be able to let go of the hurt you gave me. I apologize. I know. I had to be honest with you. Elara, please give it some thought. To make it up to you, I'll stop at nothing. It will take me some time. Really, I'm at a loss for words. Nolan, I'm content now. I started dating someone fresh. What? Have you already moved on? How could you subject me to this? What are you trying to say? You ended our relationship. It was you who departed. Elara, you still have my love. You will never be happier than you will be if you leave your boyfriend and return to me. My name is Elara, and at the age of 37, I discovered the love of my life. But he wasn't my first love, either. I was married to Nolan, my first spouse, for a grueling 6 years. I was ecstatic when we were married. With Nolan, I believed I had finally found my happily ever after. Everything seemed fantastic at first, and our wedding was lovely. We were both really happy and in love. Together, we took trips, discovered new locations, and created priceless experiences. However, as time passed, things began to shift. We tried for a few years before realizing that I couldn't conceive. Nolan, my ex-husband, and I were both devastated by the news. It was heartbreaking to realize that our goal of creating a family together would never come true. Nolan first made an effort to be receptive to alternative solutions, such as surrogacy or adoption. But with time he started to evolve. He grew aloof and reclusive, spending an increasing amount of time with friends and decreasing amounts of time with me. He used to blame me for everything that went wrong in his life. He made me feel like I didn't deserve to be happy since I couldn't have children, and continually put me down. Nolan informed me he wanted a divorce one day when he sat me down. I was really taken aback and heartbroken. I was in disbelief that the man I had spent my whole life with and loved was abandoning me due to an uncontrollable circumstance. Our friends started picking sides as the weeks passed, and it seemed like everyone was rooting for Nolan. He was a really likable and gregarious person, and I started to feel alienated in my own life. My terrible divorce left me feeling lonely and isolated. I questioned whether I would ever find love again as I battled to find my place in the world. I felt in my heart that I deserved to be happy nevertheless, even with the suffering. I gave myself some time to think about what made me happy. I joined a yoga class, began a new job, and got in touch with some old acquaintances from my youth. I gradually began to regain my self-assurance and joyful aura. It seemed as though the cosmos intended to honor my advancement with something significant and enduring. I had a new acquaintance one day. Elias was his name, and he was a good-natured, understanding man. When we started dating, I thought I would finally be able to move over the hurt of my divorce and go on. Naturally, at first I was afraid and apprehensive. My last marriage had ended in divorce and heartache. After all, Elias, though, was unique. I felt like we clicked right away when we first met. He never passed judgment on me, listened to me, and acknowledged my worries and vulnerabilities. He was friendly and patient, and I felt secure being around him. I came to see Elias as the love of my life as our relationship became closer and closer. He encouraged me, pushed me, and made me laugh in ways I never would have imagined. We were talking about getting married before I realized it. I was thrilled, but I was also a little nervous. What if the past happened again? What if I was unable to provide Elias with his ideal family? Elias, nevertheless, reassured me that he loved me just as I was. We decided to go slowly as a result. Before adopting a kid, we moved in together and began making plans to get married when we were ready. Everything was flawless. Up until the day the phone rang and I was sitting by myself in the living room. The number that appeared on the screen shocked me. Though I had made an effort to erase him from my mind, fragments of him remained. It was Nolan's number. I knew that. It had been a couple years since we last spoke. Hello. I apologized to Lara, please. I left you and made a terrible mistake. I was taken aback to the point where I initially didn't know what he was saying. I could only whisper his name in my belly. Nolan. It is, in fact, Nolan. I left you and made a terrible mistake. I have discovered that I am sterile. It's all my fault that I am unable to become a parent. It was wrong of me to leave you. I want you back because I miss you so much. What are you talking about, Nolan? I never stopped loving you, even though I know I damaged you. Give me an opportunity to do things right, please. I'm at a loss for words, Nolan. My life has gone on for the better. I'll never be able to let go of the suffering you gave me. I apologize. I know. I had to be honest with you. Elara, please give it some thought. To make it up to you, I'll stop at nothing. It will take me some time. Really, I'm at a loss for words. Nolan, I'm content right now. I started dating someone fresh. What? You've already moved on. How could you subject me to this? What are you trying to say? You ended our relationship. It was you who departed. Oh, Elara, pay attention. You are still loved by me. You will be happiest you've ever been if you leave your boyfriend and return to me. Nolan, please. I expressed what I needed to. Kindly continue living your life. I have to end the call immediately. Apologies. I was feeling rather conflicted during that talk. I thought I was on an emotional roller coaster since there were so many different emotions there. I had a part of me that still cared for Nolan and thought we could work things out. But I knew I couldn't go back to him when I considered all the times he had made me feel inadequate as a woman and made me feel denigrated. Throughout it all, Elias was there to encourage and motivate me to do what was best for me. I made up my mind to stick with Elias, and I told Nolan exactly what I had decided. I believed that I conducted the talk as effectively as I could have given my emotional state. When I decided to go on with my life, Nolan reacted with sadness. I had made up my mind, but it felt like he had always thought that we might make amends and start again. I was unable to return to a life in which I felt as like I had to tread carefully all the time in an effort to win over someone who didn't respect me for who I was. Even though I was determined not to hurt Nolan, there were moments when I regretted what I had done. He made many attempts to get in touch with me, but I thought it would be best for us both if we kept our distance. Even though it hurt to see him struggle with a split, I had to prioritize taking care of myself. I tried not to run into him, but every now and then we happened to cross paths in town. I hadn't seen him previously because he had moved to a distant place following our divorce. But now that I was seeing him so frequently, I thought maybe he had moved back. I could see the anguish and destruction in his eyes every time. However, it was already too late. I had moved on and was happy in a different relationship. I was alone at home one day when I heard the doorbell ring. I felt attentive right away for some reason, like my intuition was trying to tell me something. I went ahead and opened the door in spite of those sentiments, and to my utter amazement, he was standing there. Nolan was the one. Upon observing Nolan up close for the first time in a long time, I couldn't help but be struck by how dramatically he had changed. He had gained a few pounds, and his previously black, thick hair was now graying at the temples. It was astounding to me how much a person could change in a short period of time. Although I appeared more vibrant than ever, it appeared that our divorce had not been well received by him. He began to talk, and his voice sounded older and richer, as though he had been smoking. Though I had some pity for him, I had to maintain my composure. Hello, Elara. How are you doing? All right, good. How were you aware of my address? Remember that we have a lot of friends in common. I no longer communicate with any of them. Well, that's unfortunate. They still give you thought. To be honest, I don't think so. Nolan, please hear why you're here. You are aware that I share a home with someone. I'm aware. I'm only here to make amends. Being friends with you would be good. Sorry, but I'm unable to complete that. Come on, Elara, are you not ready to move on from the past? Nolan, please go on. I'm ecstatic right now. Farewell. He stretched out and stopped the door just as I was about to close it in front of him. My heart began racing as a result of my surprise. I knew the man I knew when I saw Nolan's face again, that conceited, irrational expression that would always stick in my memory. I sensed that I was in peril. I want to show you something. Please allow me inside. Nolan, no. You're not allowed to enter my home. I'm making a police call. All well, then. I'll just show you here if you want to play hard to get. Nolan took out a number of pictures from his pocket. As I went through each one, my heart fell. There were several photos of us together in bed from our marriage. I was still in disbelief when Nolan continued. You know, I could give them to other people, like your new sweetheart. You can, however, find a means to make it up to me. You could just give me the money that's in the home. Right now, I need some assistance, but as soon as you provide it to me, I'll leave you alone. I was still trembling violently, staring at the images in my hands. It was unbelievable to me that after all these years, he had retained them and was now using them against me. I was sick to my stomach because he threatened to email them to everyone I knew, including Elias. I couldn't fathom the humiliation and guilt that would accompany disclosing those private moments to the public. And if that wasn't terrible enough, Nolan demanded half the price of our previous home. It was an obvious attempt to use the circumstances and me. I was aware that I couldn't accede to his demands, but I also couldn't take the chance of those photos getting out. I had the impression that there was no way out, but I was aware that my own needs had to come first. Nolan, I'm not doing that. I had that house before we were ever dating, so it was legally mine. Take caution when making your choice, Elara. Do you really want these photos to be seen by everyone? I'm unable to offer you the cash. That is all. And until you do, I won't leave you alone. I was shocked when Nolan turned around and walked away after that. The thought of the guy I once loved, who abandoned me just when I needed him most, appearing in front of my door to demand money was too much for me to process. Nolan was not just an awful spouse, but also an awful person. It was definitely time for me to accept him for who he truly was. Following my interaction with Nolan, I felt really exposed and disturbed. I couldn't get rid of the deep sense of dread I was experiencing as a result of the idea of those photos being made public. The adoption facility where Elias and I were being considered for adoption called the next day, just when I thought things couldn't get much worse. They told me that I had been the target of a complaint alleging that I was abusive. They were forced to halt my profile as a consequence, and I was prohibited from accepting any more adoption interviews until the inquiry was over. When I received the news, my heart fell. Despite all the hurt Nolan had caused me in the past, I had committed my life to becoming the best loving person I could be. Being accused of maltreatment was therefore incomprehensible. I was aware that Nolan was responsible for this and that he had managed to further complicate my already challenging life. Elias gave me hope when I believed there was no hope left. He was enraged to find out what had transpired. Being a skilled attorney, he was determined to support me in my lawsuit against Nolan. Nolan just put all of the pictures he had of me in the garbage, and I didn't even notice. Even though it was rather difficult for me to tell him anything, he supported me the entire time. I was able to withstand what was ahead because of him. Nolan began messaging me a few days later, pleading with me to fulfill his demands. He even went so far as to call me names and denigrate me, threatening to put the photographs online if I said no once more. I briefly sensed myself giving in. It was too much to bear to worry about those photos being revealed. But then, with Elias at my side, I maintained my composure and gave the situation careful attention. I understood that Nolan was only pleading with me to return because he was destitute and in need of someone to provide for him financially. He was just interested in what he could get out of me, not about me or our history together. I inhaled deeply and summoned the last of my remaining bravery. I texted Nolan back, informing him that I would not be providing anything to him and that I would report him to the police if he kept harassing me. I also highlighted how much he would have to pay in a lawsuit if he uploaded the photos online. He would lose the lawsuit, and they would have hard evidence that supported my assertions. As I anticipated, he withdrew for a few days. I then made the decision to sue Nolan for blackmail and harassment with Elias's assistance. I had saved every text message Nolan had sent me during our marriage, demonstrating just how violent he could be with words. Even though it was difficult to look through them and remember the misery I had gone through, I knew they would be important in the case against him. After Elias assisted me in finding a fantastic marital attorney, we sued Nolan to get justice for all the wrongs he had done to me. Although the lawsuit took a long time and was difficult, justice was eventually done. Nolan was obliged to pay a sizable amount of money or risk going to jail, since the odds were stacked against him. Before long, the photos he had of me were seized, and I was never forced to see them again. In front of our whole family and circle of friends, Nolan revealed his true nature. Many of our former acquaintances apologized to me for previously siding with Nolan. Even while it was pleasant to be back in touch with some of them, I maintained my distance. My desire was to dedicate more time and effort to my small family. After my identity was cleared, Elias and I adopted a cute little kid. Our dreams included a stunning wedding and a contented, peaceful afterlife. With a man who is practically too good to be true, it has been the life I have always imagined. I'm happy with my life as it is right now, and I'm looking forward to everything great that lies ahead for us.